Hello everybody, welcome to GCSE Unit 1 Class 3 about opportunity cost. This is our last class on Unit 1. There's lots of exercises and resources I have for you that you can download in the link below. So let's get cracking. Firstly then, what we're learning today, we need to learn a lot about opportunity cost. We briefly looked at it in the past with an exercise, but we really need to go into detail with it now, and we need to be able to put it on something called the production possibility curve. And then we're just going to focus wholly on the PPC, is what we like to call it, or the PPF, which means frontier. Some students get confused. They say, James, what's the difference between the PPC or the PPF? And the answer is they're exactly the bloody same. Don't worry about it. So this is the definition of opportunity cost. You need to remember this in your sleep, okay? You get this, you get a question on this in the exam, you bust this out, bang, forget about it, move on. The cost of the next best thing foregone. The thing that you lost, the second choice that you decided not to take. Moving forward. Question time. You have 3 choices after school. Okay? Do you go to university, work in a company, or start your own business? I want you to pause the video for a moment and think about which choice you would make personally. Okay, for me, my choice was to enter university. That was my first choice, right? I wanted to escape. I wanted to get out. I wanted to travel the world. Bang. I knew that a degree would help me do that. So that was my first choice. But my second choice was actually point 3. I was going to start my own business. And I did have my own business in school. I was actually selling t-shirts, but it wasn't profitable enough or successful enough for me to take it to the next level. So my second choice was to continue down that line. And my first choice was to enter university. I chose the first choice, and my opportunity cost is the thing that I lost, and that's starting my own business. Think about the choice you made or will make, and think about your opportunity cost there. Most of my students, 80%, all choose to enter university. So their opportunity cost is usually working in a company. I lost my second choice of starting a business. Okay. Now, here is a video on opportunity cost. Okay.
Imagine the following situations. A young man enrolls in a tuition-free public university. From his point of view, he gets the education for free. He will study in a field of his choice for 5 years, and after that, he will be granted a master's degree. 2. A freelancing website developer decides to renovate his flat on his own instead of hiring a renovation team for $1,000. He will spend 2 weeks doing it. 3. A good and respected baker leaves his job and sets up his own bakery. This will allow him to earn $24,000 in the first year of his business. 4. Just after New Year's Eve, a man buys slightly discounted fireworks for $1,000. He stores them in his home and sells them after a year for $1,030. On the surface, it seems that each of these people have made a profit. The student acquired education for free, the freelancer saved $1,000, the baker earned $24,000, and the last man sold fireworks with a 3% profit. But let us look at this from another perspective. 1. The student chose a stagnant field of studies. Employers will not need his knowledge after his graduation, so he will probably have to apply for a job without any higher education requirements. Instead of going to a university, he could have applied right away for a job paying him $20,000 a year, or $100,000 in the 5 years. What's more, he would have gained professional experience that would quickly allow him to apply for a promotion. 2. By deciding to repair his flat himself, the freelancer forgoes a website development job for a
Explore how leaders balance priorities, make tough decisions. The CNA Summit 2025.
large company. If he had accepted the job, he would finish it in 2 weeks and earn $3,000. By devoting his time to renovate his flat, he deprived himself of the opportunity to earn the money. If he had chosen instead to hire a renovating team and to take the commission, he would end up with $2,000 still in his pocket, despite having to hire the team for $1,000. 3. The baker who started his own business previously worked for a large network of bakeries. There he earned $3,000 a month, which amounts to $36,000 a year. By working on his own, he could earn only $24,000 a year. So by choosing to start a business, he lost an opportunity to earn the additional amount of $12,000 a year. Moreover, he forgoes the safety of a full-time job and took upon himself the risk of running a business. That is, on the one hand, the risk of losing the money he invested in it, and on the other, the additional stress. 4. The man selling fireworks earned 3% profit of $1,000. Instead of buying fireworks, he could have deposited his money in a savings account with 5% of annual interest, which would net him $50 in a year. He also lost his own time and storage space in his home. Thus enters the notion of the opportunity cost, meaning the cost of the foregone opportunities. Economists define the concept in several ways. The second best option for an action given a present choice, Matej Machai, PhD. The subjective value placed on the next best alternative that must be sacrificed because of a choice, Robert Murphy, PhD. Opportunity cost is a subjective idea. Only the individual chooser can estimate the expected value of the best alternative. In fact, we seldom know the actual value of the foregone alternative because by definition that opportunity lost is the road not taken, the alternative passed up in favor of the preferred option. William A. McEachern.
Okay, so there was a few situations with opportunity cost that we saw. For example, this person here, they could go to university and do a degree that might not give them a lot of money in the long run, or they could immediately start a job and get $20,000 a year, and that might build up to more than 100K over those 5 years, and the experience gain might help as well. Now, there's no right or wrong answer here, but if this person believes that university will give them better options and life enjoyment and things they want to do, then that's the choice they're going to make, and they're going to sacrifice the initial income they would get from working. We could see that the person that runs their own restaurant, $24,000 a year. However, if they worked for somebody, they might earn $36,000 a year, which was a sacrifice of $12,000. Okay, so they've lost that $12,000, but you got to think about what they gained. They probably gained the mental peace of working for themselves, the lack of having a boss arching over them, telling them what to do all the time. So people might make decisions that aren't always based on financial motivations, and this is where the opportunity cost idea comes in. Let's move forward. There is a British government exercise similar to an exercise in the first class. Okay, I want you to, usually I get these students to discuss this with each other, but you can just pause the video. I want you to think about what percentage the British government puts into all of these different things. So they get a pot every year of taxable income and other kinds of income, and you've got to decide how they divide up that pot. Let's have a look. Look at this. So pensions and health in the UK, very different to what we saw with North Korea. Pensions and health take up the majority of the pot. So, and then the third one is welfare. So all these retired people in the UK taking a massive amount of tax money. That's why the NHS is under stress right now. We have a huge aging population in the UK, and the people that are working have to support these older people. And that leads to higher taxes and more stress and frustration in society as young people can no longer get on the housing ladder and whatnot because their wages that they take home are slowly being eroded as inflation is increasing. We'll get to that later on. Here are the real stats then, as we can see. Very, very interesting spread in the UK. And everything has an opportunity cost. Because 20% is going on pension, that means healthcare, welfare, education, defense, all of that is sacrificed in aid. Right, let's see how we can plot these on a graph. Okay, I'm going to try and make this production possibility graph as simple as possible initially. Here is the definition. You do need to know this definition. It's basically a line or a curve that's going to show the maximum level of output a society can do. So let's imagine we sleep 8 hours a day and we have 16 hours remaining for work and play. We need to divide our day between these two options. Okay, we'll do it on a production possibilities graph. So on the graph, we have two variables. On the x-axis, we have work hours, and on the y-axis, we have play hours. So the assumption is we have 16 hours in a day, okay? Because 8 hours is for sleep. So that means if we wanted to, we could play for 16 hours, or we could work for 16 hours. So what we do is we plot a line here like this. We can go anywhere we want on that line. So if we wanted to on a weekend, we could just play for 16 hours. Or if we wanted to have a really, really heavy day, work in the mines, we could work for 16 hours. Now here is a healthy, well, what people argue is a healthy middle ground, but who knows if it's really a healthy middle ground or not. The idea that you have 8 hours work and 8 hours play. However, let's say you've gone from a Friday to a Saturday, you might shift up along this curve to play for 16 hours on one of the days. Or let's say you have a cheeky day off without telling anyone. So we can move along this curve, okay? We can move forward along this curve. We can sacrifice some of our playtime for work if necessary. So what we look at there is what we sacrifice. We sacrifice 4 hours of play in order to get 4 hours of work. And that 4 hours of work gives us money. So that's what we're looking for, really. We gain money in sacrifice of our leisure time. Now, what happens if my friends say, okay, I need to go to a concert with them at nighttime. I want to go see Linkin Park. And they have a new female singer, I believe. And we have a choice. I need to mark 10 hours of economics homework or go to this activity with them for 10 hours. But I want to do both. And that's 20 hours. I only have 16 hours in a day. Is there a way out of this for me? Well, according to this red line, there is no way out of this for me because I would need to be here on this graph, right? Which is beyond my ability within those hours to do. Unless I decide, that's it, I am only going to sleep for 4 hours on this day. If I only sleep for 4 hours on this day, the line will extend to here, and then this could be achievable. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so in real life, this is what the curve will look like, okay? And we use it for business in economics. We usually have two goods on the curve. On the x-axis, we normally have consumer goods. Consumer goods are things that you and I buy in the store. Food, clothing, mobile phones. And on the other side, we have capital goods. These are just goods for business, okay? Goods, man-made goods used for production, okay? So two kinds of goods in society. Anything that's produced can fit here or fit here, all right? And it's normally a curve. And I'm going to explain why it's a curve and not a straight line shortly. So like I said, capital goods are used for production. Look at this coffee machine. If you have this coffee machine at home, it's a consumer good. If you have it in a store, it's a capital good. And I said consumer goods are for home. So look at all these beautiful consumer goods here. Clothing, food, dishwashers. Now, as some students correctly said, and I just mentioned with a coffee machine, a lawnmower, if you buy it and use it at home, consumer good. If a business buys it to mow lawns, it is a capital good. I hope we understand these distinctions. So, in some instances in the exam, they might give you two separate items here, cars and trucks in this case, but if you don't know what to write, just write consumer goods and capital goods for safety. Now, this is a curve because if we decide that we want to move from here all the way to here, okay? If we want to move from this direction to this direction, things get a bit difficult for us because we are actually sacrificing quite a lot. We are gaining a little bit of extra cars, okay? This much extra cars. But look how many trucks we are sacrificing. We're sacrificing way more trucks than the cars we receive, okay? And the opportunity cost, the cost of deciding to add extra cars means we lose a lot of trucks in this process the closer we get to the edge. And there's a reason for this. The reason for this is the closer we get to the edge here, the greater the sacrifice, the more machines we have to use that produce trucks for producing cars. So we might have lots of truck factories with lots of great people that are amazing at making trucks, okay? But because we're almost fully making cars now, these people that are good at making trucks in truck factories with equipment for making trucks now have to make cars. They're not as good at making cars, but we make them make cars. So they're less efficient. So what we're doing is we're putting in all these extra resources and factories to make cars, but they're nowhere near as good as car factories. And so that leads to this problem where we're using inefficient resources to produce these cars towards the end. In the middle, it's okay. You might have some factories that are really versatile. These factories might be able to produce cars and trucks, and people can swap between them. Particularly unskilled people at this point, they can swap quite easily. So as you can see, there's virtually no sacrifice here if you go to A to B or B to A. But when you get to the edges, you're using the resources made for trucks to produce cars here. If you decide to go to this edge, you're using the resources used for making cars to produce trucks. That's inefficient. And that's what we say with this curve is called diminishing returns. So if you want, you can pause and just have a look at this. All right, moving forward then. The PPF can also shift in and it can shift out, okay? Because remember, this curve represents a limit of total production in society. Now, there are ways where we can increase that total limit of what the whole society can produce. So think about anything in the whole country that can add to total production. Can you think of any things? Maybe pause the video and have a think. Let me show you. So firstly then, technology. Think about ChatGPT. Think about how quickly that's going to improve tech. Think about how many companies are cutting 80% of their workforce because one person can do 5 times as much work now. This is a really cool example of a factory producing alcohol.
Constellation Brands, the maker of beers Modelo and Corona, is growing at lightning speed, and it's keeping pace with the market thanks to robots.
Our brew house is fully automated here. And frankly, we run each shift with 6 people. We've got maybe 58 robots.
While robots have been present in North American factories for 50 years, here at Nava, Mexico, they're taking on new roles.
So look at that level of tech. Absolutely fantastic. No humans on the floor, all machinery, super fast production. Let's move forward. Next, health. If the people in your country are really healthy, their diet's really good, they're only going to have 1 or 2 sick days in a year instead of 5 or 10. That's going to increase your productivity significantly. Healthier economies have a higher output per person. There was another video here on golden rice. I won't play this video. However, basically, in the Philippines, they've started to produce yellow rice that also contains vitamin A, which allows people that have just a diet based on rice to not have any of the deficiencies that come from vitamin A deficiency. Really wonderful technology, improves the health of the country, and allows them to have a greater output and greater efficiency per person. Next, education. According to some theorists, a couple of million years ago, that was us. Now look at us. So, smarter economies. If we can educate people, they will have a higher productivity per person, and then the economy will grow. Moving forward, this is a video on quantum computing. I won't play it. However, we are really close to having really complex equations being crushed by these devices at really, really cold temperatures. Quantum computing is going to be a game changer. It's just a slow process to develop this technology. Next, size of the labor force. It's as simple as this. The more people come to your country, the more you can produce. And then capital. What kind of equipment does your country have? The higher quality of the capital, the more you can produce in the shorter period of time with less people required. That's going to lead to greater outputs across the board and push out that PPF. This is an example of a laboratory that has an excellent degree of capital, and they can produce 1 million vials a day of tests. Really, really wonderful to see how fast technology is growing and developing all across the world. And finally, look at that beautiful picture. Oh yeah. Resources. What do you have? The more rare earth minerals you have, the more phones you can produce. The more iron you have, the more railway tracks you can make. All these things are really, really important. This is a video on Japan finding new rare earth minerals. Okay, so basically, here's a conclusion. Improvements in any of these sectors can lead to pushing this out. This is the most fundamental thing you need to know for the exam. Can you remember this? Get it in the noggin. Get it in that bloody head right now and don't let it leave. I want you on your deathbed. I want you on your deathbed to bloody remember this. All right? Fundamental. So, what pulls it in then? The opposite. Think about technology getting worse. War, healthcare, education. What can make that worse? Poorer health, disease outbreaks, schools closing down. In certain countries, they've stopped education of women. That's going to lower the total production capacity of a country. What if people emigrate, leave the country? That's going to lower the production possibility. Capital gets old, it's not being replaced. Or quality of resources. What if our resources run out? What if mines go cold? There's no more resources in them. So, next example then, a cheese factory. What can push it in and what can pull it out? Pause the video and have a go. Conclusively, we can see just part of the graph has moved for shoes and cheese. So what makes it go in? We might have war destroying cheese factories. We might have cheese workers getting sick. The environment might not be very good. We might have people leaving the company. Machines might not be replaced. Or the quality of resources might decline. What if the cows get sick, or they've got not enough grass to eat and they don't get as fertile as they once were? On the other side, we might have better technology through innovation, faster processes, better healthcare from the whole society that leads to more cheese being produced and less sick days. People might become more productive as they have better capital or machines. All these things lead to a greater output or potential output of cheese overall. So here's a graph I got students to make. You don't need to do it. You can if you want to. Pause the video. And it looks like this. Okay? So we've got 6 points on this graph. So what I was getting students to do is to calculate the opportunity cost based on these elements. Okay? So we're going to go from A to B, B to C, C to D, E to F. Just like that. We're going to go across this graph and just calculate, if we decide that we want more milk, how much cheese we're going to sacrifice for every 1 milk that we get. And it kind of looks like this. In every situation, when we move from A to B, we have 10 less cheese, okay? If we move from B to C, we have 10 less cheese. C to D, 10 less cheese. It's all on the graph, okay? Now, milk. We have to identify how much extra milk we get each time. We can see from A to B, we get a massive amount of extra milk. But when we go from B to C, we get a bit less milk than we'd received initially. C to D, bit less. D to E, bit less. E to F, and then F to G. Less and less and less and less and less. So for the first one, we get 27 milk and our sacrifice is 10 cheese. To work out our opportunity cost, all we need to do is 10 over 27. Does that make sense? So if we do this, we can work out exactly how much cheese we lose for 1 extra milk. So for every 1 extra milk I get, I lose 0.37 cheese. That's a pretty good deal, isn't it? I get 1 milk and I lose about 1/3 of cheese. I'm very happy with that deal. That's a good deal because we're right on the edge initially. And now we can have our milk producing resources that maybe aren't being used anymore to get back in operation and get them to be used again. However, this great deal isn't going to always occur. As we move along, we can see that basically the opportunity cost gets higher and higher and higher. And by the time we get to F to G, we actually lose 10 cheese and only gain 1 milk. So that's not a good deal for us, is it? This is a great deal. This is an okay deal. Still depends on how important cheese and milk is to you down along this line. But when we get here, we are sacrificing a lot for 1 milk. Crazy. So we can see this difference along the graph. It's really important to understand this value of opportunity cost. We can put it in numbers. All right. So moving forward, here is another example. Okay. I will get students to draw this graph normally, and then they would fill this in. Okay. So if you pause the video, can you calculate the opportunity cost for me for this? Once again, this one's a little bit easier than before. The opportunity cost increases by 0.5 each time, all the way up to 3. So we get a great deal at the start when we move from A to B, but as we go further down the line, it becomes a bit more difficult. Now, moving forward, there's a question is, why is point D efficient when point A is not? Point D is efficient, well, for 2 reasons. If you're on the line, you're already super efficient, right? Because you're producing at the maximum resources your country can. meaning all of your offices are open, your warehouses are open, you've got full employment. You can't produce beyond that at point I. So it's efficient in that way. But the argument is it's also efficient when it goes from D to E or D to C. And that's because you have machines that make cloth and wheat and employees that are making cloth and wheat. But some of these employees can easily swap between these jobs at this stage. And they might not have skills in either of them. So there isn't really a sacrifice in productivity. It's when we get to these edges where we sacrifice a lot of productivity. And so it's efficient in two ways. So have a quick look at this answer. Next. Where is production unattainable? Well, I think I already answered that a moment ago. We cannot produce at point I unless we get what? Better resources, more people coming into the country, better equipment. We need to have a greater degree of technology or anything in order to push out our PPF. If our PPF doesn't push out, we are unable to attain I. There is an argument down the line in A-level economics, not GCSE economics, that we can achieve point I temporarily at the sacrifice of our people and our capital equipment. But for now, you don't need to worry about that. And question 3, each case, a new tractor improves wheat farming techniques. In this case, the curve will shift to the right for wheat farming. So it would look like this because it doesn't say anything about cloth. Next, the productivity of all workers increase. In this case, the whole graph curve would shift out because wheat and cloth. Now we can produce more and we're closer to I. Ignore the dodginess of the curve. And for the third case, new technology makes it more efficient for both of them. Same again. Dodgy curve, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. Draw the little arrow. There we go. Okay, so the 6-question recap then. Pause this video and have a go through these. So a large earthquake causes damage, and we're going to draw a graph with capital goods and consumer goods. A large earthquake causes damage. Bang, did you get this? Shift in for both. Next, government increases investment in education. Short and long term. Little caveat there. Initially, the curve goes in because we take employees away. People are not working anymore. And then later on, when they're highly educated, boom, the curve shifts out substantially. 3, improvements in computing power. Think about ChatGPT. Curve shifts out. Pretty chill, that one, isn't it? Next, a worldwide shortage of imported raw materials, including oil. Businesses need oil to operate. So the curve is going to shift in. And then 5, large amounts of immigrants. We've got a greater degree of people working in the country. So the curve's going to shift out. And finally, unemployment increases. Now, this is one which tricks a lot of people. We move inside the line. So we still have the same number of people that can do the same number of jobs and the same number of factories that can produce on this line. However, in this case, at the moment, because unemployment is increased, these people are not working even though they could work, meaning that we haven't achieved perfect efficiency. We're not on the line. All right, that's enough from me. I hope this has cleared up a lot of misconceptions about the PPF. I hope you have a good understanding of what it is, how it relates to opportunity cost, how to calculate opportunity cost, and how to draw the PPF. Well, I think that's enough from me. I'm James. I've taught this subject for over 10 years now. And if you're interested in any private lessons or resources, you can do so at the links down below. Good luck in your exams, and I'll see you again.